The Galactic Council's emergency session buzzed with tension as Admiral Zexathari's projection flickered above the central platform. The reptilian commander's scaled features betrayed nothing, but the slight tremor in his voice spoke volumes. "The simulation parameters are non-negotiable," he announced to the assembled representatives. "Each species will send their finest military candidates." The scenario: a collapsing research station with 47 juvenile specimens from various worlds trapped inside. Rescue protocols will determine which species receives the defense contract for the Outer Rim territories. Alexander Chen leaned back in his chair, fingers drumming against the metal armrest. Beside him, Nora Williams studied the holographic station blueprint, her tactical mind already calculating entry points and evacuation routes. They were humanity's representatives, a former Marine Corps captain and a search and rescue specialist who'd pulled survivors from 3 different natural disasters. "The Cubs aren't real," Nora whispered, her breath barely audible over the translator's hum. "Doesn't matter," Alexander replied, his dark eyes fixed on the swirling alien dignitaries around them. "We treat them like they are." The Vraxian delegate, a towering insectoid creature, clicked its mandibles dismissively. "Emotional attachment to simulated offspring is inefficient. Logical species prioritize mission objectives over individual preservation." A murmur of agreement rippled through the assembly. The crystalline ethereals chimed their harmony, while the wolf-like Fenari representatives howled their concurrence. Only the humans remained silent. Within the hour, 12 teams materialized inside the simulation chamber. The research station groaned around them, artificial gravity fluctuating as emergency lights painted everything in hellish red. Through the station's transparent aluminum viewports, a dying star's radiation storm lashed against the failing shields. Alexander's HUD immediately populated with life signs. 47 small, frightened creatures scattered throughout the station's multiple levels. His enhanced hearing picked up their cries, chirps, mewls, whistles, and sounds that had no human equivalent. The Vraxian team moved with mechanical precision toward the station's central computer core, their mission apparently focused on data retrieval. The ethereals phased through walls, seeking whatever energy signatures they deemed valuable. The Fenari pack split up, each member pursuing different objectives with predatory efficiency. "They're all ignoring the Cubs," Nora observed, her voice tight with disbelief as she watched the other team's movements through their shared tactical network. Alexander shouldered his emergency pack, checking the portable life support units they'd requisitioned. "Then we get all of them." They moved as a unit, years of partnership evident in their synchronized steps. The first group of Cubs huddled in a collapsed cafeteria, 3 Altarian crystal birds, their prismatic feathers dim with fear. Alexander's massive frame barely fit through the debris, but he crawled forward anyway, his gentle voice cutting through their distress calls. "Easy there, little ones," he murmured, extending one scarred hand palm up. The universal gesture of peace needed no translation. Nora rigged a makeshift sling from emergency fabric, creating a carrier that could safely transport the fragile creatures. The crystal bird's sharp edges would have cut through standard materials, but her engineer's training had taught her to think 3 steps ahead. The station shuddered violently. Their mission clock showed 12 minutes remaining before total structural failure. "Vraxian team has extracted primary data and departed," came the cold announcement through their comms. "Ethereal Collective has secured energy matrix. Fenari Pack has retrieved genetic samples. On level 7, they found a Zephyrian gas child, its amorphous form leaking life-sustaining atmosphere through hairline cracks in its containment unit. Most species would have written it off as irretrievable. The specialized equipment needed wasn't standard rescue gear." Alexander watched Nora work, her fingers dancing over her portable fabricator. Within 90 seconds, she jury-rigged a temporary containment field using components cannibalized from their own life support systems. "That'll cost us 20 minutes of air," she noted clinically, securing the gas child's new habitat to her belt. "The Corvaxi Cubs in the lower section need that time more than we do," Alexander replied, already moving toward the next group. They found them trapped behind a blast door, 7 small reptilian forms huddled together in the darkness. Their species adults had apparently calculated that breaking through would require more resources than the juveniles were worth. Alexander placed his palm against the reinforced barrier and looked at Nora. No words were needed. She nodded and began setting shape charges while he opened a comm channel to the trapped Cubs. speaking in slow, reassuring tones, even though they couldn't understand his words. The explosion echoed through the dying station. Through the breach, 7 pairs of golden eyes stared up at them with a mix of terror and hope. 4 minutes left. 22 cubs still scattered throughout the upper levels, and the artificial gravity was failing completely now. Other teams had long since evacuated with their prizes, leaving the humans alone with their impossible task. "We can't carry them all," Nora said, but she was already calculating load distributions and evacuation sequences. Alexander smiled grimly, activating his suit's emergency beacon. "We won't have to." The next 3 minutes became a blur of impossible physics and determined stubbornness. Alexander's powered armor groaned under loads it was never designed to bear, while Nora turned their extraction point into a complex web of zip lines and improvised elevators. Cubs of 12 different species clung to them, trusting these strange bipedal aliens who spoke in soft tones and moved with careful precision. When the station's final collapse came, they were still inside. The simulation chamber's safety protocols engaged, freezing the scenario as emergency lights bathed everything in harsh white illumination. Alexander and Nora stood in the center of the wreckage, surrounded by 47 small beings who should have been abandoned to their fate. The observation deck fell silent. Admiral Zexathari's reptilian features showed something that might have been confusion, or perhaps recognition of something fundamental that his species had forgotten. "The humans have failed to complete their assigned mission parameters," announced the Vraxian delegate. They prioritized irrelevant simulated entities over strategic objectives. Nora looked up at the viewing gallery, exhaustion and defiance warring in her expression. "Every single one of them is breathing. Every single one of them goes home." Alexander nodded, gently stroking the crystalline feathers of an Altarian cub that had refused to leave his shoulder. "That was our mission. That was always our mission." In the stunned silence that followed, a new voice spoke, Admiral Zexathari himself, his words carrying the weight of dawning realization. "The defense contract is awarded to the human delegation, not for their tactical superiority or technological advancement, but for reminding us what we were before we became civilized enough to calculate the value of a life." The cubs began to sing, each species in their own voice, but somehow creating a harmony that transcended language or evolution. In that moment, the assembled representatives of galactic civilization learned something they had forgotten in their rush toward efficiency and logic. Sometimes the most advanced thing you can do is the simplest. You save everyone because everyone matters. Alexander and Nora exchanged a look that said everything and nothing. They were human, and that was enough.